That is how Christian Bale exports Hollywood.
Christian Bale is one of the best actors of the 21st century. He's become a hero to many, with his amazing performances in movies like American Psycho as Patrick Bateman, Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight, even as Dick Cheney in Vice.
Yeah, I don't think you can disagree with that.
Through his insane body transformations, memeable lines, and incredible method acting, Christian Bale has become an icon. But even with all of the fame, money, and success, very little is actually known about the actor himself. He keeps everything about his life private, he hates all the BS of Hollywood, and seemingly just lives like any other average Joe, with a normal car, normal house, and a chill lifestyle. It seems like Christian Bale has escaped all of the
Adam Sandler lifestyle
laid in front of him since his beginnings as a child actor. So how did he avoid all of the pitfalls of the Hollywood life? How did he escape all of the BS? And why is he so loved today? Well, it all began early in his childhood. You see, Bale never actually wanted to be an actor initially, but after watching his older sister perform on stage, he thought it looked fun and wanted to try his hands at it. One of Bale's
Empire of the Sun is actually insane.
first projects was Empire of the Sun, a Steven Spielberg classic in which he plays a young boy living through the horrors of World War II, separated from his parents while living in China. You could already see hints of the man he would become, especially one or two of the interviews he did to promote the movie, as he spoke about using his own experiences to better understand his character.
Before I do all the scenes, I just think of what I've been through and all that, and just try and put myself in the character's shoes, so you become the character, if you like. And so,
is he British?
And how he would wear himself out before a scene by running around and jumping so that he would be out of breath once the scene started.
before practically every take, in a lot of it, I have to be really whacked out and breathing deeply. And Stephen had me jumping up and down behind the cameras and running for about 5 minutes before every take. So, I mean, I got fit through it, yeah.
Great director. So
he described it as becoming the character, a practice that would follow him well into adulthood, and even be a major aspect of his popularity with audiences. Bale loved the process of making a big budget movie, though at the time, he didn't recognize just how big this really was. He loved it so much that when asked, he spoke about doing another movie.
Bale makes his debut in a very big Steven Spielberg picture. What do you hope to do next?
I don't know. I want to do another film,
Do you?
definitely, but...
However, his enjoyment of filmmaking wouldn't last for long, as Bale soon discovered that he disliked two major aspects of the process: press tours and being famous. While promoting the film, he didn't understand why he had to spend hours talking to hundreds of strangers while essentially answering the same questions over and over again. He quickly retreated into himself, and well thought out answers quickly morphed into a disinterest that
he can suggest not to do this interviews, right?
to being deemed as rude, uncooperative, and a difficult boy. One of the many nightmare cases of child
press conference.
actors having everything and then becoming a complete mess when they become older. And in this period, it seemed like this was happening. I mean, expecting a child to have no trouble sitting through interviews really isn't fair to them. The movie industry is robbing them of their childhood, and so it makes sense that a young Bale would eventually snap. After frustrating an interviewer by being more interested in stabbing an orange than answering his questions, Bale excused himself to the bathroom before making a break for it. While this sparked panic and embarrassed his father, who didn't want to hurt his son's connection with a famous director, no one ever got to the crux of the problem, though it wouldn't take long for the young actor to reveal what was really bothering him. During a few interviews after the film was released, he mentioned that as much as he enjoyed the experience, he was happy to be back home with his friends, who still treated him like he was normal.
And my friends, they think it's great as well. I mean, but they don't treat me as a film star or anything, they just treat me as they did before. Meanwhile, which is really nice.
While Hollywood was difficult, Bale soon discovered that life in his hometown in the
Back to the normal life.
UK wouldn't be any easier. When the movie was
He's from the UK.
released, his performance was well praised by everyone who saw it, but the film itself was a box office bomb, something his classmates would never let him live down and even blamed him for it. According to Bale, some of his classmates tried to disfigure his face to ruin his acting career before it even
What in the actual?
started. This terrible experience
Some kids are actually insane.
transformed Bale from a happy kid to a recluse. It seemed like that might be the end of what would have been a brilliant career, and Christian Bale would have been another victim of the child acting paradox. His mother was particularly worried about the change in her boy. She recalled how many other child stars had met terrible fates for various reasons and almost encouraged him to leave acting. However, Bale's father wouldn't let his son miss out on the massive opportunity he'd been given by starring in one of Spielberg's
McCanklin seems to be doing alright.
films.
The Home Alone
While he
guy.
didn't pressure his son into taking roles, given that he developed a negative response to it since the press tours, he never stopped suggesting roles. Eventually, his son agreed to act in Fraser Heston's adaptation of Treasure Island, alongside Charlton Heston. Now, those who worked with Bale on his second movie praised his performance and work ethic. Because natural authenticity is an essential part of art in all forms, whether it be comedy, acting, movie making, to even watches. Like this Frostive watch I wear on a regular, 10% off of your order.
Good
The
on.
film didn't just help him earn back his confidence, it reminded him just how much he enjoyed becoming a character and bringing them to life on screen. An added bonus of the movie was that it was made for TV, meaning Bale didn't have to do hours of promotional press that would sour his time on set. Many young actors were never afforded this kind of support, often being forced to work crazy hours with very little rest. One of the saddest examples of this was Judy Garland. The iconic actress was an unwanted child born to
Masyadong taas.
parents who loved to entertain. As a result, she was forced onto a stage shortly after she turned 2 and instructed to perform for her sisters. While she didn't mind singing on stage, the young actress soon felt like all the joy in her family had vanished. It was a realization that followed their move to California, where her mother, who Garland later called the real Wicked Witch of the West, decided that she would turn her young daughters into stars. From as young as 10, her mother put her on diet pills, amphetamines in the morning to keep her energy levels unnaturally high, and sleeping pills at night. When she eventually signed on with MGM, Garland was given her iconic name and forced to maintain her pill diet so that the studio could work her to the bone. Her mother and MGM were determined to control every
It's actually highly unethical.
aspect of the actress's life, even pushing her to abort 2 of her pregnancies because they disapproved of the would-be baby's father. Garland was robbed of her childhood and anything that remotely resembled stability, and of course it soon caught up with her. After years of this lifestyle, and quietly dealing with sexual harassment from MGM's studio head, and even other actors, Garland finally cracked. And while filming The Pirates, she suffered a nervous breakdown that would earn her a 2-week stay at the psychiatric hospital in Massachusetts. After her nervous breakdown, Garland spiraled, developed a drinking problem that would follow her to her death, and a depression that saw her in and out of psychiatric hospitals for electric shock therapy. Garland was never able to shake the drug addiction encouraged by her mother, and it combined with several other health issues that would eventually take her life. While Bale escaped the fate of many child stars in Hollywood, he wasn't without his scars. The overwhelming negative attention brought on by Empire of the Sun was an experience that would stick with him forever, and even shaped the way he and his family
Who critiques this?
interacted with the press. Furthermore, unlike many Hollywood stars, Bale would sacrifice a crazy payday for a low-budget passion project. And while he is best known for portraying larger-than-life characters like Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale has never had an issue working for very little, and was often willing to sacrifice financial stability for the chance to perform in something artistically demanding, especially if he believes in a project. This led him to admit that he's never been smart in a business way.
I mean, I remember at the time it was like not the smart thing to do because there was no money in it, and it was like, oh bloody hell, I'm going to lose my place where I'm living, and I was quite newly married and all that, so it wasn't the business smart thing to do, but I've never been smart in a business way.
But his fans were happier because of this, as his sacrifices resulted in some of his most iconic roles. Take for example American Psycho. This amazing iconic
Classic.
2000 film launched the Welsh actor into stardom, and is arguably what he's most well known for. But Bale actually made very little on the entire movie because finances didn't want him. During an interview with GQ, he revealed that the makeup artist loved him because they were getting paid more than he was. However, Bale wasn't involved in the movie because of the money, though he did appreciate that the film kept his house from being repossessed. He was just passionate about the project and bringing such a wild character and an amazing book to life on screen in a way that was true to the author's original portrayal.
Like an actual comedy.
He proved his dedication to the project in more ways than one throughout the production. He kept the book with him to ensure that he had a perfect understanding of the type of man Patrick Bateman was.
Any scene we were doing every single day, I had the book by my side, and I would read through it every single time because Brett had just had so many wonderful descriptions.
Developing his own exercise routine and completely changed his persona and accent to really become the character. He did all of this, and just before filming began, Bale was then removed from the project in favor of more famous actors.
So many known actors who were stepping up and wanted to do it, and she just said, no, I want Christian, even though all the financiers were saying, we're going to give you no money, and then actually kicked the 2 of us off.
But that wouldn't stop Christian Bale. He'd often call up the director, who'd also been removed, to discuss aspects of the character, and even turn down a few roles that would have paid him more, leading to those closest to him to believe that he'd actually gone off the deep end.
And I would call Mary up, and she would say,
Because he actually believed in
hey,
himself.
Christian, they've given it to other people. And I was like, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. We're still going to make it. And she was like, ooh, he's lost the plot. And all my friends were saying that to me, like, what are you doing? And I was turning down. It wasn't like I was getting offered much, but, you know, a couple of projects. Not very good ones, I turned them down.
Ultimately, through his dedication, the role would be returned to him, after actors like Leonardo DiCaprio rejected it, and Bale would destroy it. After a huge body transformation for American Psycho, it was clear that Christian Bale was one of the most dedicated actors out there, and also completely hilarious. But because of this, American Psycho wouldn't be the only role in which Bale sacrificed a huge salary for an artistic challenge, whilst also sacrificing his own health. The
Machinist.
Let's
Okay.
Rescue Dawn and The
Oh,
Flowers
shit,
of War were all smaller projects, but Bale prepared for each one as if they were blockbusters of the century. This level of dedication and willingness to work well below an A-list actor's pay grade isn't something we too often see, and is a stark contrast to people like Charlie Sheen, who literally halted the production of 2.5 Men over payment disputes. Sheen was of course a major part of the beloved sitcom, and has often been considered the main reason it did so well. The show's popularity soon meant that the actor earned $1.8 million per episode, but it seemed like this wasn't enough. As his fight with substance abuse worsened, so too did Sheen's attitude and personality. After a visit to rehab in 2011 that caused the show to go on a hiatus, Sheen went on a public rant about the show's creator Chuck Lorre and his decision to temporarily halt the production.
Rotting dog shit. The fermented puke that is your viscera. Can you smell the lies? Can you smell the carnage you've created? Can you smell the imposter living within? Can you smell it?
Okay. I like this like movie.
It smells like malaria, in case you were wondering. If sad and stupid had a foul odor attached, it would be you, Bori. You gotta hate that your stage name rhymes with suck. Personally, I find it perfect. Suck and muck. You picked a fight with a warlock, you little worm. Remember this.
Lorre and the studio had enough and promptly fired the actor, who felt his dismissal from the show was unfair. He then sued them while
And then the two hot men over.
demanding they increase his pay to $3 million per episode. While Sheen could at least blame some of his behavior on the drugs, an actor like Rachel Zegler has no one to blame for her wild demands but herself. During a rally in 2023, a video of Zegler demanding that she be paid for every hour of the new Snow White movie was streamed because she had to stand around in a dress for 18 hours.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
It wasn't a great look for someone who only had
Actually entitled.
2 films under the belt at the time, and based on her attitude and numerous interviews, almost completely destroyed the entire movie's reputation. It's clear that Bale is an anomaly in Hollywood, with the sacrifices that he'll make, and his attitude towards it. And while Bale's acting is phenomenal, his willingness to do what other actors weren't wowed his fans. Going back to American Psycho, when he first heard about the role, Bale was actually informed that taking part in this movie would be career suicide.
In many ways, in the same way that people were telling me, hey, you can't go play Patrick Bateman, it's career suicide. And I was like, bring it on. I definitely want to do that.
But he saw it as a
Worcester.
challenge. He didn't play the character because people wanted him to play it. He was threatened for even considering taking the role. But because he was fascinated with the character and thought it was hilarious, he stuck to his guns. Part of his fascination with the character stemmed from his preparation for the role, which led to a surprising encounter on the Wall Street trading floors. It seemed like the men working there were the only ones excited to see him bring Patrick Bateman to life, though not really for the right reasons. Where Bale saw American Psycho as a hilarious satirical commentary on capitalism in the 80s, making fun of how ridiculous and far-fetched the materialistic culture was, the Wall Street bankers he encountered saw something to admire and even strive towards. Much to Bale's concern, they actually loved the dark, obsessive character unironically.
But, you know, clearly, look, it's a satire on capitalism in the 80s, and as such,
But they took it as a
is
real
so
guy.
bloody far-fetched and ridiculous that, you know, to me, I can't help but think it's hilarious.
While this portrayal of the deranged banker didn't do great initially, it soon became a cult classic. And even today, everyone's always watching it, making the movie into memes, and its cultural relevance still stands strong. And his response was the same when others told him that if he played Batman, he'd never be able to break out of the character's shadow again.
Other people also said, hey, you know, if you play Batman, that's it. You're never going to play anything else again. You will always be Batman. And I went, bring it on. Let's see if that happens.
Another challenge, but one that Bale had long accepted that he probably wouldn't win. His love for a challenge went beyond just taking roles that people thought would lead to the end of his career. Bale also developed an obsession with fully immersing himself in his characters and would go much further than any other actor before him or after him. His first significant transformation,
It probably was Port P.
therefore one of his
Karate.
most iconic, was when he lost over 60 pounds after American Psycho, all to play Trevor Resnick in a low-budget movie. He went from being this buff jack dude that everyone was fawning over to almost completely anorexic. He was so skeletal that the director of the movie stepped in to prevent Bale from getting any smaller. While Bale was initially disappointed in himself and not getting to his ideal weight, called himself nuts years later when wanting to go so far.
First you did The Machinist,
First I did The
and you
Machinist,
dropped
yeah.
63 pounds.
Yeah.
And then you went ballooned back up 100.
Yeah,
Just for what reason?
Within about 5 months. Just because I loved the Machinist script very much. I felt like it was an essential thing to have him be incredibly skinny. I probably, in retrospect, look at it and think, I got a little bit too obsessed with it. It was maybe not that
now,
necessary.
can we explain that? I mean, is that just your nature to be that obsessed?
I think it's an interesting thing that whatever state
just
you find
passionate,
yourself
that's all.
in, you tend to accept as being the norm. And so despite the fact that to everybody else's eyes, I was dangerously skinny and possibly, potentially doing myself great damage, I was actually saying, I think I failed to achieve the look I was originally going for.
He was then cast as Batman shortly after, which would mean he'd have to rapidly put on over 30 kilograms and become absolutely jacked. This was almost an impossible mission, but again, Bale impressed everyone as he gained all the way back in just 6 months. However, one of his best transformations was definitely for Vice. Thanks to the extra weight, bleached eyebrows, and some prosthetics, it may take you a few minutes to realize that the man on screen is not Dick Cheney, but actually an unrecognizable Christian Bale. The same guy as Patrick Bateman.
It's kinda
These weight
crazy.
fluctuations continued from role to role, and he became infamous online for this, blowing people's minds about his levels of discipline and sheer control over his body. Speaking of control, during the director's commentary for American Psycho, the director actually revealed that during the scene where Bateman showed off his new business card, Bale broke into a sweat at the exact same time in every take, all going to show how incredible of an actor he really is. If there were cases where he could submerge himself even further into a role, he would take it.
And if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to take the time to do it, then I want to do it in as much of an immersive way as possible.
Such as when he played Burt Bernstein in Amsterdam. Bale is of the impression that if he doesn't need to act, he won't act, and he puts that into practice for his movie.
And if I can avoid acting, I do avoid acting. Like, if you can just really do it and be uncomfortable, why bother pretending to be uncomfortable? Just be uncomfortable.
His character wears a rather uncomfortable brace due to his back problems. Bale decided that rather than pretending to be uncomfortable during filming, he would actually be uncomfortable. So he kept the brace on even when he wasn't filming scenes. It's clear that Bale does live very differently. And with all of this, you can tell that he's not just
Some dedication.
regular Hollywood
right there.
actor. In fact, he's never cared about fame, viewing himself as only useful when he was someone else, and not seeing the necessity of sharing his life, believing all it would do would distract from his performances. As a result, he's never been one to flash his money around, and he still famously drives a second-hand 2003 Toyota Tacoma, all because it's just practical, and he doesn't want to show off. His one wish since he first entered the Hollywood scene was to live a simple life, but unfortunately due to the nature of his work, he'd never really be able to achieve that goal completely. But he has done an amazing job of keeping his life hidden away. Bale was deeply affected by how quickly he'd gone from being unknown to someone people would point out in the streets, and he wants to make sure that his children would never go through a similar experience that he did as a child. While his kids' faces and names are unfortunately public knowledge, due to the paparazzi, people don't know anything about them. If Bale talks about his children, he often doesn't use their names and instead refers to them as his little girl and boy, or playfully calls them his banana and burrito.
And thank you for our beautiful children, Banana and Burrito.
Which is quite rare considering most celebrities love
Okay, the Will
to
Smith.
put their kids in front of the camera, just like the Kardashian family.
Will Smith has now a family YouTube
All
channel.
beginning with Kris Jenner, who turned her children into major celebrities by recording their petty drama and explosive meltdowns for the world to see. Now it seems Kim, who
I
initially
mean, that's their own business,
didn't want
so
her children to be on camera, is following in her mother's footsteps. As the family's relevance died, the reality star grew desperate, so when destroying iconic dresses and showing off a lavish lifestyle was no longer working, she started using her oldest daughter for clout by having her appear in TikToks, and beside her on the red carpet photos. However, her latest stunts with Northwest have got people incredibly
What
heated,
is this?
especially Kanye. Even during one of Katy Perry's concerts, the singer called the then 9-year-old on stage and had her dance with her friends to promote her TikTok page. Based on how things played and how irritated North seemed in some of Kim's later posts, people were sure that Kim had set up the whole thing for views. Many people also speculated that Kim paid off someone in Hollywood to get her eldest daughter on stage as Simba for the Lion King's 30th anniversary concert, costing a talented child a chance to make a difference. As angry as people were over both instances, no one was shocked. Most have just learned to accept that the Kardashians don't care what they have to do to stay on people's screens, they just want to be there. It proves that some people value fame far above anything else. Clout chasing is the culture of Hollywood, and while that's never been an issue with Bale, the actor has had to deal with several controversies of his own. Because he takes his career so far, sometimes it leads to issues. While promoting The Dark Knight, his mother and sister accused him of assaulting them a day before the premiere, but there just wasn't enough evidence against him, so Bale wasn't arrested. But once the story broke, it was all anybody wanted to talk about when interviewing the actor.
You know, it's a deeply personal matter, and I would ask you to respect my privacy on that subject.
While the issue was dealt with behind closed doors,
Actually speaking
it
out.
wasn't mostly forgotten, leaked tapes of Bale would circulate online showing his anger and how crazy his method acting truly was. While filming Terminator Salvation, Bale was a bit frustrated while filming one of the scenes, as the director wanted perfection and wasn't happy with how things had come out. When Bale finally managed a perfect take, the shot was then ruined when the film's director of photography walked onto the set to fix the lighting. An already fed up Bale exploded at him and went as far as threatening to quit if he wasn't fired. However, the controversy surrounding the incident didn't last too long, as Bale was quick to publicly apologize for what happened.
I have never tried to make any excuses for it. It was unacceptable, and I take it, it's my fault. That's it.
Through all of his failures, successes, and
He took some responsibility.
controversies, Bale has risen the ranks as not just a brilliant actor, but an icon,
He's the man right there.
especially for Gen Z men. While all of his characters have something to teach, Patrick Bateman seems to be the one most people are drawn to. Whilst that might actually be a bad thing, the actual reason goes way deeper than that. And we've done multiple videos talking about Patrick Bateman before, and what the message of the movie is really about. However, the love of Bale goes way beyond just his performances. Yes, he's dedicated to his craft, but he's also incredibly committed to his values. He just seems like a normal guy in any interview he does. He cares deeply for his family, he's not some clout-chasing freak, and he's willing to push beyond
He's like actual Keanu
what
Reeves.
people thought was possible for him to achieve. Which is why it seems like Christian Bale is so loved compared to most actors in Hollywood. And it helps that most of his characters are incredibly memeable, making Christian Bale beloved in every decade.
Okay, guess I'm ending that.